Hey guys, tonight we're traveling somewhere soft, cool, and faintly floral into the secret nighttime rituals of ancient Korea, where beauty wasn't just skin deep, but soul deep. Imagine the distant clack of wooden slippers against polished stone, the faint shimmer of moonlight on rice paper windows, and the rustling of silk robes as a court lady glides toward her candle-lit chamber. Her hair is tied high with ornate pins, her hands powdered faintly with crushed mung beans, and her face, well, that's where the magic begins. This isn't your average bedtime routine. You're about to apply a face mask made of crushed pearls and fermented rice water, fan yourself with branches dipped in camellia oil, and inhale steam from boiling ginseng. You'll fall asleep to the scent of mugwort and the faint paranoia that someone may notice a blemish before dawn. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love knowing who's dozing off with us around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start by kneeling on the wooden floor, your knees perfectly aligned with the low lacquered table where your skincare tools await. Small ceramic jars of milky liquids, wooden spoons carved with lotus motifs, and a silk cloth folded with surgical precision. You dip your fingers into a jar of cloudy rice water, sour-smelling and warm to the touch, and gently pat it onto your cheeks. It stings, but in a satisfying way. Fermentation was key back then, not just for food but for skincare, because people believed in activating the spirit of the plant. No joke. They thought letting rice soak under moonlight made it friendlier to the skin. As you apply it, a handmaiden gently fans your face with a flat bamboo paddle, not for vanity, but to aid absorption. This is no ordinary moment, it's ritual. The room smells of roasted barley and dried flowers, the ambient scent of the palace kitchens mixing with your floral facial steam. A clay pot simmers in the corner, filled with camellia petals and dried persimmons. And somewhere, echoing down the hall, you hear the muffled sound of an official reciting poetry aloud to no one. Joseon Korea was poetic like that. Every night a stage play, every face a canvas. But don't get too comfortable yet, because your skin is far from ready. You reach for a flat stone disc, smooth and cool, used to roll your cheeks upward in slow, deliberate strokes. Think jade roller, but less spa day and more daily duty. Court ladies, concubines, even queens, everyone was expected to present a glow that said, "I'm rested, composed, and definitely not terrified of political exile." You dab on mung bean paste next, thick and grainy, leaving a greenish cast that smells faintly like wet leaves and hope. Some say this paste kept the skin soft and protected against palace dust. Others say it just made you look less dead in candlelight. Historians still argue whether these routines were more about genuine skincare or carefully performed symbolism. Skin as a metaphor for inner virtue. Either way, you didn't skip it. Missing your routine could spark rumors. She's sick, she's aging, she's falling out of favor. So yes, skincare was kind of a survival strategy. You pick up a bowl carved from gourd and filled with water infused with chrysanthemum petals. You rinse gently. The petals swirl like delicate little boats, catching the light from a single wax candle flickering beside you. That candle, by the way, is made from tallow and rice bran, eco-friendly, faintly sweet-smelling, and prone to dripping down dramatically at key moments, like when your rival walks by your chamber pretending not to stare. You blot your skin dry with a piece of silk that's so fine it looks like moonlight woven into fabric. It glides across your cheek like a whisper. By now your face feels clean but not squeaky. Moisture was considered sacred, dryness, the mark of neglect. And you wouldn't want that. Not when rumors could travel faster than smoke in those palace walls. Outside, the cicadas hum. Inside, you move on to your final layer, a mixture of apricot seed oil and ground red bean. You massage it in with circular motions, humming softly to yourself like your grandmother once did. She taught you to count each circle aloud, not because it mattered, but because rituals brought calm, and calm brought sleep. In the corner of your room sits a tiny mirror made from polished bronze. You glance at your reflection. It's not crystal clear, more like a dreamy blur of outlines and light. But that's the point. You weren't supposed to obsess over flaws. You were supposed to polish your skin until even a blur could glow. Across the courtyard, another window glows faintly. Someone else is beginning their routine. Maybe a concubine who just received a silk robe as a gift. Or maybe a nervous maid who hopes for promotion. Everyone has their reasons, but the tools are the same: water, powder, oil, patience. Ancient Korean skincare wasn't just effective, it was an art of survival, an aesthetic discipline, a soft war waged nightly in silence. So now, as you lie back onto your narrow floor mattress, hair pinned above your head, face still damp with herbal essence, you close your eyes. Not to sleep just yet, but to let the night air settle onto your skin. The candle flickers one last time. The petals have stopped swirling, and the hush of the palace wraps itself around you like a second skin. You wake before the sun, but let's rewind just a little. Before your body stirs, before the courtyard roosters dare to call, your skin has been quietly transforming under the spell of fermented rice water and apricot oil. You've slept with your face kissed by herbal moisture, your pores gently sealed by bean paste and silk. And now, as you blink awake beneath layers of pale linen, your first thought isn't breakfast, it's texture. The face must feel smooth before anything else happens. That's how it worked in the Joseon court. Good skin was good etiquette. But the real star of the early morning ritual, especially for queens and noblewomen, wasn't just some mystery herb or rare flower. It was rice. Specifically, the cloudy, ever so slightly sour-smelling water left behind after washing uncooked rice, known today in beauty circles as rice water essence. But let's not get ahead of ourselves with hashtags and product lines. Back then, this elixir was a common miracle. You pour the leftover liquid into a ceramic jar, let it sit overnight, then gently scoop only the top layer, never the cloudy sludge at the bottom. That was seen as unstable, temperamental, maybe even unlucky. You pat it onto your cheeks with your fingertips gently, rhythmically, as if you're tapping a secret message into your skin. And the sensation? Imagine dewy fog meeting warm skin, slippery, soft, not unlike melted snow. The effect over time was radiant. Not from glitter or shine, but from what they called Yule, that deep inner glow you only noticed when the candlelight made your face look like it belonged to a scroll painting. Historians still argue whether rice water was prized mostly for its cosmetic effect or its symbolic purity. Rice, after all, fed the nation. It was life itself. To place it on your skin was to honor that cycle. Yet, not everyone had the luxury of pouring out buckets of rice just for beauty. In palaces, it was fine. In small farming villages, wasteful. So clever women found ways to multitask, rinsing their face with the same water used to prepare family meals. Economical skincare, centuries ahead of its time. But court ladies, they did more. Some soaked cloth strips in rice water and wore them like early sheet masks, letting them cling to the face while reciting poetry aloud to no one in particular. One tale even claims a noblewoman was scolded by her mother-in-law for doing it too long. Her skin became too youthful and made the elders jealous. It's unclear if that's true, but you can imagine the tension. Glowing too brightly in a dim hierarchy could be dangerous. Rice was only the beginning, though. After patting it in, you reach for a second jar, this one containing yukmiji, a fermented rice bran mash, grainy and thick, used like a modern exfoliator. You gently press it onto your cheeks and chin, feeling the warm friction of ground hulls against soft flesh. It smells faintly toasted, like the edges of old bread. You scrub in slow circles, not out of urgency, but reverence. Cleanliness wasn't just hygiene, it was moral. Korean Confucian ideals tied personal grooming to personal virtue. Dirty nails could imply a messy soul. Dull skin might hint at laziness. And in a world where your face preceded your words, skincare became your unspoken resume. Not everyone in the court had the same access, of course. Lower-ranking women reused ingredients or made do with simpler methods, like soaking barley and straining the mucilage as a natural emollient. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. In fact, many modern dermatologists marvel at how effectively these humble concoctions balanced skin pH and soothed irritation without any synthetic chemicals. The fermentation process, it turns out, was a natural way of enriching amino acids, antioxidants, and probiotics. You were basically applying a 1,000-year-old lab experiment to your face, and it glowed. Still, there were fringe beliefs too. Some thought fermenting rice water under moonlight would yield a gentler solution than sunlight exposure. Moon-charged cosmetics. Whether placebo or not, the results earned the faith. There's even a record of a royal concubine refusing to use rice water that had been exposed to eclipse light. Bad omen, she said. Might cause blemishes. And who wants eclipse zits? One rare scroll found in a provincial archive detailed the 13 steamings, a a ritual where rice water was boiled, cooled, fanned, and reheated 13 times to remove aggressive spirits from the grain before touching the skin. While no one agrees if this actually helped, the scroll's marginal notes include drawings of butterflies, possibly symbolic of transformation, possibly just doodles by a bored monk. Still, it's a glimpse into how deeply skincare merged with belief. As the rice ritual ends, you splash your face with cold water drawn from a mountain spring, or, in your case, a ceramic jug wrapped in linen to keep it cool. The shock closes the pores, you're told. More importantly, it wakes you. And as the sun begins to rise, painting the sliding doors with golden light, your face catches it just enough to show a sheen. Not shiny, not oily, just radiant. You feel it before you see it. The tension melts. Your cheeks tighten ever so slight. I lie. And you smile, even if there's no one to see it. Because in this world, glowing quietly is better than shining loudly. Rice gave you that. And tonight, you'll make more. You don't realize how sharp pine needles smell until you crush them in your palms and press them to your cheeks. The scent is somewhere between earthy resin and forgotten winter, and it bites a little, like waking up in the middle of a forest and realizing your skin matters more than the fire. In ancient Korea, especially in the colder, mist-wrapped northern provinces, skincare wasn't just about softness, it was about resilience. So after your morning rice routine, it's time to move deeper into the woods of tradition. Ginseng and pine weren't just herbs, they were the twin pillars of vitality. They went into soups, medicine, and yes, face tonics. You start with a pot of pine needles steeped in near-boiling water, letting the oils rise in thin shimmers across the surface. You lean in, eyes closed, inhaling the steam that tickles your lashes and opens your pores like tiny gates. It's relaxing until you remember, this isn't optional. Back then, looking weathered was a sign of poverty, or worse, neglect. And in a Confucian society, neglect of self was nearly a social sin. The pine infusion, called solip cha, was often mixed with crushed mung bean flour and applied as a thin mask. You take a wooden spoon, swirl the greenish paste, and press it onto your skin like you're layering on pieces of forest. It feels cool at first, then tingly, an ancient warning system that the botanical oils are doing their work. As the mask sets, you remember how ginseng was treated with holy respect. It was literally called the root of life. And it wasn't easy to get. Only the wealthiest households could afford wild mountain ginseng, twisted and golden like veins of wisdom harvested from the soil itself. Historians still argue whether its reputation came from actual skincare results or from the placebo effect of its rarity. But court records mention its use in everything from anti-aging serums to pale skin potions. The process was methodical. Dried ginseng was soaked in warm water, pounded into paste, and mixed with sesame oil. This rich, earthy blend was massaged into the temples and under the eyes, where royal stress and candlelit reading left their marks. For special occasions, the blend was heated just slightly and wrapped into silk cloths, then pressed to the skin like mini steam pillows. It's said that one crown prince refused to appear in court unless he had been ginsenged first. Nobody questioned it. The glow spoke for itself. You rinse the pine mask slowly, letting the water trickle over your chin in slow, deliberate arcs. The scent still clings, subtle, grounding. Then comes a toner made from boiled burdock root and licorice, astringent but polite. It clears the path for moisturizers, the final veil before the day begins. But not everyone loved the herbal heaviness. Some women in the mountains preferred camellia oil, light and floral, pressed directly from seeds after long roasting sessions by the fire. It didn't carry the prestige of ginseng, but it was beloved for its elegance. You imagine a peasant mother dotting her daughter's forehead with a drop, muttering, "So you won't flake during festival season." Not everyone could afford elaborate regimens, but everyone had a routine, and in those routines were whispers of survival. One fascinating document from the 17th century describes a ritual where newlywed women were given pine-infused water on their wedding night, not to drink, but to wash their faces before facing their in-laws. The water was believed to ward off negative energy, keep tears at bay, and keep the skin firm through long, awkward dinners. Whether it worked? Who knows? But it was comforting. Fringe recipes flourished too. Some women swore by a mixture of wild ginseng and barley malt, fermented together in earthen pots buried in the ground for weeks. The result was a tangy, golden goo smeared on the chest and neck before bed. To keep the heart and skin young, one noblewoman wrote in her journal, though the smell offends the cat. You smile at the idea of smelling like fermented root and barley mash, while a confused palace cat circles you in judgment. But that's the thing about ancient skincare. It wasn't for Instagram. It was personal, quiet, sometimes weird, always intimate. These weren't just ingredients. They were memory, lineage, and intention mashed into clay jars and handed down through whispers. You press your palms gently against your cheeks now, warm and damp, and feel the bounce. The glow. The faint tingle of pine. You don't look like royalty. You look like someone who has listened to trees, and that's enough. You hang the cloth to dry, blow out the small oil lamp, and close your eyes, just for a moment. Outside, a ginseng trader is making his way up the mountain path, his back bent with bundles, his pockets full of secrets. You may never meet him, but tomorrow you'll use what he carries, and your skin will thank him in silence. You step lightly through the side corridors of the palace, your slippered feet making the faintest hush against polished stone, as you carry a small, lacquered box wrapped in silk ribbon. Inside, a collection of vials, powders, and folded instructions penned in the looping script of elder court ladies. This is no ordinary delivery. You're on your way to a meeting of Hanyang's hidden beauty guilds, the quiet sororities of skincare whispered about in courtyards and kitchens, where royal concubines, court ladies, and even seasoned maids pass down their most guarded secrets. These weren't official groups, no banners, no titles, but every woman who mattered knew someone who'd been invited. You reach a tucked-away tea room, its screens already drawn shut, and slip inside where the air smells like steamed rose hips and something sharper, perhaps powdered deer antler. Around the low table, 4 women sit with their sleeves neatly rolled and their faces glowing like polished shells. One dips a wooden stick into a small jar and holds it up. Crushed peach blossom mixed with honey and rice powder, said to lighten sunspots if applied every night for 7 days under a waxing moon. Another shares a waxy balm wrapped in dried lotus leaf, murmuring it was stolen from a traveling merchant who claimed it came from the southern islands. You lean in, curious, skeptical, and oddly delighted. This isn't skincare from scrolls or Confucian sermons. This is lived beauty, rebel beauty, crafted through experiments, accidents, and friendship. One recipe calls for nightshade boiled with safflower, followed by vigorous face slapping. Another suggests crushing sparrow eggshells with rose oil and storing it under your pillow to dream yourself radiant. You all laugh gently at that one, but no one fully dismisses it. Historians still argue whether these guilds were widespread underground networks or simply scattered acts of sisterhood, but artifacts suggest they were real enough. A rare diary uncovered near Jeonju recounts a woman named Sohua who claimed she met twice a month with others to swap beauty salves and remove the boredom from our brows. Another scroll shows illustrations of 8 herbal infusions for whitening the neck, a sign of refinement. The guilds were half science, half superstition, all care. You're handed a scroll wrapped in silk that lists the 6 forbidden ingredients: bear bile, turtle blood, mercury, red lead, fox liver, and charred silkworm cocoon. Most were illegal by royal decree, all were whispered to offer extreme results, and at least 3 could probably kill you. But of course, danger made it tempting. One elderly woman recounts how a lady of the court secretly used red lead on her lips and was praised for her pomegranate mouth, until her teeth turned black. She vanished from the records soon after. The group doesn't judge. They just nod solemnly and pass around sesame oil blotting cloths. You join in, gently pressing the sheet to your cheeks. It's slightly translucent when lifted, a good sign. Oil meant your skin was alive, youthful, not dry and brittle like winter bark. But the real heart of the guild isn't in the recipes. It's in the ritual. As the moon rises outside, the group begins to hum a folk song while stirring a clay bowl of mashed chestnut and rice starch. The rhythm is soothing, the harmony gentle. Someone giggles halfway through a verse and the whole group collapses into laughter. Your hand brushes someone else's and no one pulls away. This is more than beauty, it's bonding through self-care, a peasant's version of power. The session ends with a candlelit pact. Each member ties a strand of hair into a sachet of dried lavender and rice hulls and promises to bury it under her bed that night. For skin dreams, the elder explains, tapping the side of her nose. Whether it's real or ritual, you follow suit. And as you return to your chamber with your lacquered box a little heavier, now filled with more than it came with, you feel something soft settle in your chest, a sense of continuity. Women helping women glow in a world that rarely gave them space to shine. You slide the door closed behind you, set your box beside your pillow, and breathe in the warm night air thick with pine and secrets. The guild will meet again in a month, and until then, you have chestnut paste to try, a sachet under your bed, and a face that feels, for once, like your own. Your fingertips hover above a folded bundle of paper-thin sheets. Off-white, delicately perfumed, and slightly cool to the touch. Tonight, you're trying something new. It doesn't look like much, just a square of mulberry paper soaked in floral waters and herbal essences, but it's what we today might call the ancestor of the modern sheet mask. You place it carefully across your face, smoothing the edges so it clings like a second skin. It feels like morning dew pressed against your cheeks. As it settles, the scent of chrysanthemum and rose petal oils wafts into your nose, calming, faintly nostalgic. Somewhere in the courtyard, wind chimes ring softly. Paper masks in Joseon, Korea weren't mass-produced, of course. Each one was made by hand, often by the user herself or by a trusted maid. You'd soak the mulberry paper, used widely for everything from calligraphy to fans, in a custom blend depending on your skin needs. Dry skin? Try apricot kernel oil and honey. Uneven tone? Fermented soybean water with licorice root. Fine lines creeping in? Steamed mugwort and ginseng sap, mashed together like a balm and spread with a goose feather brush. And unlike the disposable versions of today, some masks were reusable, rinsed gently, dried in the moonlight, then re-soaked and reapplied until they disintegrated like fog. The whole thing feels oddly high maintenance for something so old. But for the noble classes of Korea, especially women of the court, beauty was a full-time job. A glowing face wasn't just admired, it was expected. You didn't get praised for having good skin. You got side-eyed if you didn't. And so the sheet mask was born not just out of innovation, but of pressure. Historians still argue whether the earliest versions of these masks were inspired by medical poultices or simply by necessity, women wanting something that could deliver hydration evenly while they performed her tasks. Some masks even had slits for the eyes and nose, allowing you to read or recite Confucian texts aloud while your skin drank in wildflower nectar. Talk about multitasking. Tonight's mask is made from steamed camellia flowers and milk curd. The mixture has a faint sourness, but it cools the face almost instantly. You recline slowly onto a mat near the window and feel the mask settle. It's heavy in the best way, like a damp towel on a sunburn. The mask will stay on for the next 20 minutes, and you'll lie there in silence. Well, mostly. Your mind drifts. You remember hearing how royal courtiers once judged a concubine's favor, not by her clothing, but by how frequently she changed her masks. "Twice in one day," a maid once whispered. "She must be rising." Others pushed boundaries further. A well-known noblewoman from Gyeongju allegedly slept with a full mask every third night, held in place by a gauze wrap tied behind the head. When questioned, she replied, "Beauty does not sleep. It sets its alarm." Fringe beliefs, as always, flavored the practice. Some women insisted that praying softly while applying the mask improved results, citing a harmony between the words and the water. One myth tells of a palace cook who accidentally created a mask blend using lotus broth instead of water and was promoted after her face was mistaken for moonlight. Likely exaggerated, but it captures the reverence placed on soft, luminous skin. But not all masks were made of paper. Some used thin slices of radish or cucumber, chilled and arranged carefully across the face like floral tiles. Others involved rice flour pastes molded into flexible sheets. One method even used flattened sheets of seaweed, though that came with an unmistakable aroma, especially in summer. You wouldn't use that before a banquet, unless, of course, you didn't want to be kissed. The paper begins to dry slightly at the edges. You peel it off slowly, one cheek at a time, folding it into itself and placing it in a small clay bowl to be rinsed and re-soaked for tomorrow. Your skin feels plump, supple, almost too soft, like it might melt into the pillow. You reach for your final step, a few drops of lotus seed oil, warmed gently in your palms. You press it in with slow, rhythmic pats, not rubbing, not massaging, just welcoming the glow. There's no mirror here, but you don't need one. The way your skin catches the candlelight tells you everything. You rise slowly, stretch your arms toward the ceiling, and feel the weight of the day dissolve. Not because of sleep, because of care. Because you took the time to become the softest version of yourself, camellia-scented, mulberry-padded, moonlit, and silent. You blow out the candle. The room darkens, but your face still glows. You sit now in a different room, smaller, quieter, lit only by the flicker of one beeswax candle and the pale brush of moonlight filtering through a paper screen. This isn't the private chamber of a court lady or the gossip-fueled hideout of a beauty guild. This is a scholar's study. Sparse, uncluttered. Except, of course, for one particular drawer neatly tucked beneath the inkstone desk, filled with silk cloths, small ivory combs, and jars of pale powders. Yes, even the men had a skincare routine. And not just any men. Joseon-era scholars, civil servants, and noble sons practiced their own quiet rituals beneath the weight of their daily obligations. You pour a ladle of warm spring water into a shallow bowl, mix in a pinch of pearl powder, and watch it swirl like fog in morning tea. You dab your face gently with a linen cloth, then lean toward the mirror, bronze and faintly warped, examining the lines around your eyes. No blemishes. Good. Your position depends on appearing untroubled, composed, well-rested. Even if you spent the night hunched over calligraphy, wondering if your last essay on moral governance was subpar. Pearl powder was a favorite among male scholars for more reasons than vanity. It was thought to clear the mind, soothe the liver, and sharpen poetic instinct. Some said the smooth glow of the face encouraged smoother thoughts. Historians still argue whether the use of pearl powder among men was purely aesthetic or tied to deeper ideals of inner harmony manifesting through the skin. Either way, it became common practice. You apply it with a rabbit hair brush in soft, even strokes, letting the dust settle across your cheeks like morning frost. You don't overdo it. The goal isn't glamour, it's quiet clarity. Composure in every pore. Afterward, you reach for a jar of sandalwood paste mixed with cooled green tea, which you apply in a narrow strip beneath each eye. Another involved placing crushed ginkgo seeds in a pouch beneath the pillow, allegedly to prevent facial tension during stressful dreams. Whether any of it worked is debatable. But the intent? That was real. You press a balm to your lips, beeswax and pine resin, because cracked lips suggest carelessness. Then, in a final unexpected gesture, you take a thin silk cloth and gently wipe your ears. Clean ears were believed to symbolize good listening, a trait vital to a scholar's public life. You chuckle softly at yourself. Who would have thought? You, a future statesman, dabbing powder beneath your eyes like a secret bride. And yet here you are, poised, prepared, polished not for beauty's sake, but for control. You blow out the candle and lie down on your woven mat, hair unbound, eyes fluttering closed. You do not dream of glory tonight. You dream of clear skin, a clear mind, and the subtle glow that says, he's got it together, even if you don't. Outside, a dog barks faintly in the street. A neighbor coughs. Somewhere nearby, another scholar repeats your ritual with near-identical ingredients. But your face, calm, powdered, and quietly luminous, is the only one that matters right now. Now step away from the palace walls and scholar scrolls and wander down a stone path that winds through barley fields and vegetable gardens. The air smells of dirt and dried leaves, and somewhere nearby, a mother calls to her child over the sound of a grinding stone. You're not wearing silk now. You're barefoot, your hair tied back with a scrap of hemp cloth, and your skincare isn't stored in ivory jars, but in folded palm leaves and hollowed-out gourds. You're in the countryside now, where beauty is humble but never forgotten. Peasant women had no royal court to impress, no scholar exams to pass. But they still cared, they still glowed. Your skincare pouch is simple: barley, honey, roots, and rainwater. The barley comes first, soaked until soft, then ground into a paste using a stone mortar. It's grainy, mildly sweet, and smells like breakfast. You spread it over your cheeks in slow, deliberate circles. The scrub exfoliates gently, removing dust from the fields and sun-dried sweat without stripping the skin. It's not a luxury, it's routine. Every few days, you add honey from the village beekeeper. Not much, just a fingertip's worth. Honey was precious, but it had healing powers. Cuts, infections, dryness. Everything but heartbreak. Some women even claimed that a tiny drop applied to the eyelids before sleep could prevent nightmares. Historians still argue whether this practice was rooted in medicinal logic or simply rural myth, but the results were consistent: less redness, fewer blemishes, and a soft, lasting glow. You rinse with rainwater caught in a clay basin, colder than you'd like, but honest. The chill tightens your skin and wakes your thoughts. No perfumes here, just the clean, grassy scent of wild herbs growing near the door. For moisture, you chew the root of the Ramania plant, then rub the extracted juice into your hands before patting it gently onto your face. The liquid is sticky at first, then oddly smooth, like nature's own toner. Not all women used Ramania. It was hard to harvest without damaging the plant. But those who did swore by its ability to hold the skin in place through winter winds. And those winters were no joke. In the colder provinces, women boiled rice bran with dried seaweed and used the resulting slurry as both soup and mask. Eat a spoon, wear a spoon, they'd say with a smile. Economical beauty at its finest. Some mixed crushed azuki beans with well water and stored the paste in small jars hidden under floorboards, protected from mice and jealous neighbors. Peasant beauty wasn't competitive, but it was private. Your tools were secrets, and your results were your pride. One village elder was said to use duck eggshells powdered fine, then mixed with sesame oil and left in the sun until it hardened into a balm. It smelled challenging, but her skin? Like aged paper lanterns, thin, glowing, soft. Of course, not all remedies were pleasant. A local superstition involved brushing crushed ants on the skin to scare away black spots. Whether or not it worked is irrelevant. You weren't doing it for fun. You were doing it because a neighbor's cousin swore it cured her wedding day pimple. You scrub that idea from your thoughts and reach instead for a small pot of barley vinegar mixed with crushed peach leaves. It stings, but that's the point. It's supposed to chase away tiredness. Fringe science? Probably. But you trust it. You trust the plants more than people sometimes, especially after a long day in the fields. The final step comes from your garden. Perilla seed oil, pressed by hand and kept in a cool crock under damp cloth. You warm a drop between your palms and pat it over your cheeks, forehead, and neck. It smells grassy, slightly nutty, and it seals in the entire ritual like a lullaby. You lie back on your straw mat, listening to the distant creak of a wooden water wheel, and press your hands against your belly, feeling the rise and fall of breath. You may not have a golden mirror or a silk robe, but you have a face that feels clean, a face that reflects the sky. Your beauty may not earn you status or power, but it earns you peace. And in a world where survival is everything, peace is luxury. You close your eyes. The wind brushes against the paper window. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You fall asleep smelling of barley and roots, and tomorrow, you'll wake up with the softest skin in the village. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the heat is already creeping through the cracks in the wooden doors. You sit beneath the overhang of the eaves, a small ceramic dish in your lap filled with something odd, gray, sticky, and faintly sweet-smelling. It's your version of sunscreen, not the bottled kind from a store shelf, but a handmade concoction of crushed rice ash, pine soot, and the thin film skimmed from boiled bean curd. Ancient Koreans didn't have SPF ratings, but they knew the sun wasn't gentle, especially for those who worked outdoors or traveled frequently. Pale skin was prized not because it was inherently superior, but because it hinted at status. If you were fair, you weren't laboring under the sun. But even peasants, merchants, and servants cared about sun damage, so they got creative. You dip 2 fingers into the mix and smear it along your cheeks, nose, and forehead. It feels cool, like cold porridge, and dries quickly. The rice ash acts as a natural reflector, bouncing sunlight before it can sink in. Historians still argue whether these ash and soot blends truly protected against UV exposure or simply created a physical barrier, but one thing's certain: they were effective enough for people to keep using them for centuries. Some variations even included animal fat, giving the paste a sticky sheen that lingered all day. Others, more daring, used egg whites mixed with talc or even powdered pearl, not for daily wear, but for special festivals, when looking luminous was worth the effort. You glance at your neighbor. She's dabbing her cheeks with something stranger, a paste made from ground lotus seeds and what she claims is sparrow saliva. Whether it's true or just gossip doesn't matter. Her skin looks flawless, and the glow of that kind of confidence is hard to argue with. Sunscreen wasn't always topical either. Some believed you could prepare the skin from the inside by drinking bitter melon tea or chewing on dried plum skins soaked in vinegar. It sounds unpleasant, and it is, but women swore it made their complexions more resistant to summer blotches. There were even morning skin steams, where women sat over boiling pots filled with rosemary, mugwort, and pine needles, draping cloth over their heads like steam tents. The heat would open pores, the herbs would cleanse, and the sweat was thought to purge the fire that built up under the skin during hot days. You've done it yourself. It's messy, sticky, and leaves your face flushed, but somehow cleaner, brighter, more alive. There's a story passed down about a noblewoman who refused to let sunlight touch her face for 20 years. She only walked through shaded paths, carried a silk parasol, and had her maids apply powder mixed with crushed oyster shells before every outing. When she turned 40, guests swore she looked 20. Of course, that could have been flattery or fear. Still, her methods were written down, and parts of them are echoed in modern routines. One of the more bizarre, fringe approaches involved placing thin silk gauze soaked in vinegar and mushroom extract over the face like a veil before walking outside. It didn't block the sun completely, but it created a microclimate of moisture that supposedly kept the skin from hardening in the heat. A little dramatic, perhaps, but beauty often is. Men weren't left out either. Horse riders and traveling scholars developed their own sun shields, thin clay masks they wore during long journeys, hardened like armor and cracked with use. Some even mixed soot with lard to create a smearable sun-blocking paste, jokingly referred to in some letters as the face's winter coat. Not fashionable, but practical. Today, you pat your cheeks dry and brush away the crumbs of dried ash that have flaked loose. You reach for the final touch, ground soybean powder mixed with cold barley tea. You dab it lightly under the eyes. It smells faintly of grain and wood smoke. And just like that, your face is ready to meet the sun. Not in fear, but in quiet resistance. No bottle, no label, just centuries of whispered ingredients and patient experimentation. Your skin doesn't feel heavy. It feels protected. Under the rising sun, you walk slowly past the stone garden, your shadow stretching gently ahead. You may not be royalty, but your face is prepared like one, and that's enough. You're in the back storeroom now, crouched beside a row of clay jars sealed with wax and cloth, the air rich with a smell that's hard to describe. Part earthy, part sweet, part something else entirely. You untie one of the lids and lean in. Inside is a pale golden gel, glistening faintly, like nectar in shadow. And yes, you guessed it. It's snail mucin, or at least the ancient Korean version of it. This isn't a modern K-beauty trend. It's centuries old, passed down quietly among herbalists and palace healers who noticed that the places where snails slithered left behind trails that made skin feel strangely smooth. You scoop a tiny bit with the tip of a wooden spoon and tap it gently onto the skin under your jaw. It's cool, a little sticky, but quickly melts into the warmth of your face. It doesn't smell bad, just mineral, like damp stone. Animal ingredients weren't rare in historical Korean skincare, though they weren't used casually either. Each had purpose, ritual, and some carried weighty symbolism. Take pearls, for example. Crushed into powder and mixed with camellia oil or rice milk, pearl was considered a royal staple, believed to purify not just the skin, but also the heart. Historians still argue whether this purification was tied more to Confucian ideals of inner beauty or to the whitening effect it had on the complexion. But either way, pearl powder became a go-to luxury item for the court. And not just for women. High-ranking male officials sometimes applied a thin layer on their cheeks and necks before major ceremonies, because a luminous face was associated with wisdom, grace, and divine favor. But pearls weren't the only treasures turned cosmetic. Another prized ingredient? Bird's nest. Yes, swallows' nests, those delicate lattice works of saliva and twigs, were soaked, steamed, and blended with herbs to create moisturizing tonics. The texture? Slimy. The effect? Strangely hydrating. You press your palm to your cheek now, feeling the slight resistance where the snail gel has dried. It's tacky in a reassuring way, like your skin is holding on to moisture with all its strength. You reach for another jar. This one contains powdered deer antler, finely sifted and mixed with ginseng and honey. Applied as a mask, it was believed to energize the skin. Wake the blood, they'd say. You've heard tales of women applying it before difficult discussions with their mothers-in-law, hoping to appear alert, youthful, and, above all, unbothered. Fringe concoctions went further. There's a record of a traveling herbalist who recommended applying frog skin extract, yes, real frog skin, for its cooling effect during summer. Another recipe called for mixing goose egg yolk with mint leaves and a dash of powdered charcoal to create a clarity balm meant to clear both blemishes and bad dreams. You'd roll it across your temples before sleep and hope the spirits approved. Not all these recipes were accessible, of course. Snail mucin required patience. Snails had to be fed specific herbs and left to glide across carved stone tiles in a shaded enclosure. Their trails were scraped off with a flat bone tool mixed with rainwater and fermented in a dark place for 7 days. You think about that as you look at the small pot in your hand. How many slow, glistening journeys it took to fill just one jar. There's reverence in that kind of time, a belief that nature moves slowly but always toward beauty. You rinse your hands in a bowl of mugwort-infused water and pat your face gently with a soft cloth. The skin feels tighter now, but not dry. Just held, like something precious. You tuck the jars away carefully, cover them again, and tie the cloth with a simple knot. Then, You light a small herbal incense stick made from ground sandalwood and dried tangerine peel and let the smoke swirl around your face. A finishing touch, they called it. Not for the skin, but for the spirit. You close your eyes. Somewhere in the storeroom, a rat scurries. You don't mind. You smell like pearls and snails and the faint sweetness of a 1,000-year-old ritual. You glow quietly, mysteriously. And tomorrow, when someone asks why your face looks so rested, you'll just smile. Let them guess. You slide open the paper door and step out onto the veranda, just as a pale fog begins to curl across the ground like spilled silk. The palace gardens are hushed. A pair of cranes stand motionless near the lily pond, their white feathers a mirror of your reflection in the water. You kneel slowly, drawing your sleeves back. Tonight's routine begins not with powder or oil, but with a thought. How you appear is not just a matter of skincare. It is, in every sense, a declaration of your place in the world. In ancient Korea, beauty wasn't vanity, it was hierarchy made visible, and nothing shouted your status louder than your skin. You take a small brass mirror from a carved box and study your face in the soft morning light. Pale, smooth, slightly dewy. Good. Paleness, after all, was everything. It signified nobility, femininity, and protection. It told the world you did not labor, did not sweat, and did not belong to the sunlit class of field workers and artisans. Historians still argue whether this obsession with fair skin was purely aesthetic or whether it also reflected Confucian ideals of stillness and modesty, lighter skin being equated with inner balance and control. Either way, the point was clear. Your glow had to whisper elegance without ever seeming effortful. That's why your routine doesn't stop at care. It extends to performance. You reach for a tiny dish of white powder, ground rice mixed with oyster shell, and a trace of flower pollen. It's applied in careful swirls to the cheeks, chin, and brow. Not too much, just enough to suggest refinement. You wouldn't want to look powdered. You want to look pure. Women of the royal court mastered this balancing act like warriors. There were even whispered guidelines: 3 swipes for a lady in waiting, 5 for a secondary wife, 7 for a concubine nearing favor. Any more, and you risked being called vain. Any less, and you looked plain. You dab a bit of balm under the nose, a blend of yuzu peel and camellia, to keep the face fragrant. And then, because tradition requires it, you apply the faintest touch of cherry blossom tint to the lips. It doesn't stain, it breathes, because status also meant subtleness. Across the courtyard, a maid passes, glancing at you briefly. Her skin is darker from time spent in the sun, an unavoidable marker of her class. You catch her looking, not with envy, but curiosity, and maybe a trace of admiration. Your skin speaks, and right now, it's fluent. Even beyond the palace, skin tone played an unmistakable role in shaping perception. In village festivals, the fairest girls were more likely to be cast as spirits or moon maidens in seasonal plays. In paintings, deities were often portrayed as impossibly pale, with faces like pearl ink on parchment. And in matchmaking, mothers would casually inquire, "Does she have snow skin or wheat skin?" as if the answer might determine the success of a marriage. But there were pushbacks too. Fringe beauty philosophers, yes, they existed, argued that natural tone mattered less than clarity. One even claimed that clear skin, no matter its color, reflects clear intention. Her scrolls were not widely circulated, but the sentiment whispered through women's conversations late at night when the powder was washed away and honesty took its place. You smile softly at the thought. Underneath it all, maybe everyone just wanted to feel seen, not judged. You rinse your face now, letting cool water trace the lines of your jaw, removing the surface layer of performance, leaving behind the work of real care. The paleness will return tomorrow, but the health beneath it? That's the legacy. You dry your cheeks with a square of raw silk and apply a final coat of rice water essence. Your skin sighs, as if grateful, and you sit still for a long moment, letting the sun rise fully, casting its golden glow over your barely golden skin. A maid brings tea. You thank her quietly. She notices your glow. You say nothing, because some status doesn't need to be spoken. It floats, visible in candlelight, in glances, in whispers behind folding fans. In skin that tells a whole story before you utter a single word. You wake to the sound of silk rustling and sandals tapping against polished wood. Today isn't just another court morning, it's your first full day as a royal in-law. You've married into the family, and that means new quarters, new titles, and yes, a completely elevated skincare routine. You rise before dawn. The maids are already waiting with a brass basin of warm flower tea. Not for drinking, but for bathing your face. Floating atop the pale amber water are jasmine petals, slivers of dried lily, and the occasional translucent fragment of chrysanthemum. It smells like a calm expectation, if such a thing exists. You dip a silk cloth into the brew and press it against your cheeks. This isn't about cleansing anymore, it's about transformation. In the palace, marriage doesn't just change your name, it changes your skin. A royal daughter-in-law is expected to radiate serenity, virtue, and refinement. Your face becomes a political surface. Historians still argue whether these expectations were passed down more through etiquette books or court gossip, but either way, you know the rules. Pale, polished, and poreless. And if it takes 20 steps to get there, then 20 steps it is. You begin with a grain cleanser, finely ground rice, mixed with white lily sap and goat milk. You swirl it over your skin using a sponge made from woven sea moss, rinsing in slow spirals. It smells faintly sour, but leaves your face smooth like lacquer. A maid hands you a jar of honey steeped with pine pollen, your new go-to mask. It's thicker than anything you've used before, golden and slow, and it clings to your face like promise. You let it sit while sipping barley tea, not because you're thirsty, but because moisture inside and out is now your routine. This mask is said to seal favor, a nickname whispered by palace maids who know too well what happens when a royal in-law appears tired. You rinse the mask with cool flower water and pat your face dry with raw silk. Next, your moisturizing stage. First, camellia oil, followed by snail mucin concentrate, and finally, a ginseng and orchid emulsion stored in a pearl-handled vial that's only opened on auspicious days. That includes today. Your cheeks glow, gently, obediently. But it's not over. You kneel before the lacquered beauty table where the finishing tools rest like sacred instruments. A brush made of squirrel hair for powder, a porcelain pot of rice tint for the cheeks, and a lip balm made from rose wax and mulberry extract, wrapped in beeswax paper. Your maid applies it all with careful hands, silent and efficient. This is no longer your time, it belongs to the palace. You feel regal, yes, but also exposed. Every inch of your face has been pressed, glazed, inspected. There's no room for blemishes now. You think of a tale passed between the older court women, a newlywed consort once caught with a flake of dry skin on her chin during a morning greeting. The Queen Mother noticed. She wasn't seen in court again for weeks. Fringe or fact, no one knows. But you don't take chances. You add a final veil of hydration mist, steam from boiled orchid petals caught in silk and tapped gently onto your forehead with a fan. The fan, by the way, is handmade with pheasant feathers. It's not just a tool, it's a message. You are of a new rank now, and every step of your routine speaks to it. But underneath all the formality, you notice something else. Your skin feels cared for. In all the rituals, in all the pressure, there's also tenderness. That rare moment when the world goes quiet and a hand presses balm to your face, not for beauty's sake, but for comfort. You rise. The layers are complete. Your glow is subtle, exacting, and prepared to be judged. You walk toward the main hall where breakfast will be served, where in-laws will inspect, and where politics will unfold in the steam from rice bowls. Your cheeks are warm from the orchid steam. Your lips catch the morning light. You are not just present, you are polished. You sit beside your new husband, who does not notice the 20 steps it took to arrive here. But you do. And so does your skin. And so does every woman who came before you, brushing powder onto her cheeks not out of vanity, but out of quiet strategy. Later that evening, long after the bowls of rice and lotus root have been cleared from the lacquered table, you sit alone in your chamber and begin the process of undoing the day. Your face has performed all it needed to, smiled gently, blushed appropriately, glowed convincingly. But now it's tired. You remove the first layer with warm barley cloths, wiping gently, slowly, as if each motion erases a moment of pressure. The camellia oil comes next, massaged into the skin to dissolve pigments and expectations alike. The palace is quieter now, but not silent. From the corridor outside, whispers float, short phrases, incomplete thoughts, names mentioned in cautious tones. One name comes up more than once, yours. You pause. You've been noticed. But it's not all praise. Someone mentioned that your cheek looked tensioned this morning. Another claimed your skin seemed dull near the jawline. You press your fingers against the spot, soft, smooth, but now uncertain. The palace doesn't miss details. And in a world where beauty equals favor, a dull patch could mean something bigger. You've heard stories. A woman banished to the cold wing after arriving with puffy eyes from sleep. Another denied promotion to first consort after a patch of redness was spotted on her temple during tea. Historians still argue whether these were exaggerated tales or real events twisted by years of retelling, but the lesson remains. Beauty was not just admired, it was weaponized. Your skincare isn't simply for yourself anymore, it's armor. And tonight, you need to double down. You reach for your recovery kit, an unlabeled box given to you by an older in-law on your wedding night. For emergencies, she said, her voice flat. Inside are powders and tinctures too strong for daily use. You take a deep breath. Begin with the mung bean and licorice paste, applied in cool patches across your cheeks and forehead. You fan your face with a sprig of cypress, not for airflow, but for the belief that the tree's energy wards off stress. As the mask sets, you recall the tale of the concubine who used bat guano mixed with ash to brighten her complexion after falling out of favor. It worked, apparently. She was seen again weeks later, glowing, smiling, seated closer to the king. Strange ingredients. Desperate times. You've never gone that far, but you understand the instinct. Fringe recipes like those circulated in hushed tones. Crushed firefly wings for glow, deer placenta balm for vitality, powdered coral for color correction. Whether they worked or not was beside the point. They gave women a sense of control in a place that often gave none. You remove the mask and apply a warm cloth to your face. The tension softens. Then a drop of ginseng oil on the temples, rubbed in circular motions, followed by a rice peptide cream under the eyes to erase any trace of fatigue. You catch your reflection in the darkened mirror, still blurred, still beautiful, still trying. The skin reveals everything. Not just health, but fear. Not just care, but calculation. You pat your face dry, fold the cloth, and press your fingers lightly along the jawline again. Smooth now, soft, composed. But for how long? You wrap your hair, blow out the candle, and lie back on your floor mat, staring at the ceiling's painted beams. You remember the woman you passed earlier, the one whose skin seemed flawless but whose eyes carried panic. She knows what you know. This isn't a beauty routine. It's survival in silk. Every lotion, every rinse, every pinch of powder is a small shield against becoming forgettable. Your skin must not falter, even when you do. You close your eyes, let the scent of pine and camellia fill the air, and your face to stay calm overnight. One night without incident. One morning with a glow. It's all you need for now. You're up before the bells again, but this time you're not alone. A court physician kneels across from you, carefully laying out a dozen tiny bundles wrapped in red silk. He bows once, then begins unwrapping them in silence, revealing leaves, powders, dried roots, and a few items you can't quite identify. This isn't a social visit. You've requested a consultation. Your skin has been unpredictable lately. A few small blemishes, yes, but also tension in the forehead, dullness under the eyes, and a creeping dryness along the chin. You've done everything right, but something's off. The physician inspects your face by candlelight, tilting it gently with a jade roller, tapping the skin with a crane feather brush. Blocked chi, he mutters. Heat in the lungs, worry in the stomach. You blink. Right. Of course. This is the line where medicine meets myth. In Joseon, Korea, skincare wasn't just surface work. It had roots in traditional medicine. Your skin was seen as the map of the body's internal state. If your cheeks were flushed, you were angry. Puffy eyes, kidney imbalance, dry lips, stagnant liver. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were driven more by spiritual doctrine or empirical herbal practice. But one thing is clear. The body and skin were never separate. The physician begins mixing herbs into a paste. Angelica root, jujube, crushed pearl, and powdered bamboo. Apply here, he says, tapping your temples. And here, along the jaw. Avoid cold air, and no ginger tea for 3 days. You nod solemnly and wonder how ginger even made it into this equation. But you accept the bundle because you trust the process. After he leaves, you prepare the mask yourself. The scent is bitter, like dried mushrooms and crushed stones, but the texture is smooth, and when you spread it on, your skin drinks it in, not in thirst, but in recognition. Like it's been waiting for this sauce. And then you sit, back straight, palms on knees, and wait for the mixture to dry. In the meantime, you open your skincare drawer and examine its contents, not as cosmetics, but as tools. You realize that your beauty table resembles an apothecary's bench more than a vanity. Dried herbs, floral distillates, ginseng extract, snail filtrate, crushed pearl. There are labels, but they don't say brightening or anti-aging. They say cooling, balancing, calming, opening the lungs. It's skincare as diagnosis, as treatment. Fringe remedies come to mind, like the rumor that soaking one's face in tea made from deer antler and chrysanthemum could prevent wrinkles caused by emotional expression, or that using powdered wasp nest could purge bad spirits from under the skin. Whether you believe in spirits or not, you understand the urge to assign meaning to each blemish. Each dull patch becomes a symptom, each product, a cure. You rinse the mask gently with barley water and press a linen cloth to your cheeks. Your skin feels cooler now, less tight, less uncertain. And more than that, you feel heard, even if by a physician who thinks your pores are whispering about your stomach. You apply a final layer of licorice root and fermented honey serum as directed and slide into bed. Not to sleep yet, but to absorb. That's what tonight is for. Absorbing medicine. Absorbing calm. Absorbing the idea that your skin is not betraying you. It's trying to tell you something. You stare at the rafters, listening to the faint creak of wood as the palace settles. You remember your grandmother, who once told you to listen to your face the way a healer listens to the wind. Gently, without judgment, always ready to learn. You smile faintly, even if you don't fully understand the lesson. Your face is a landscape, a story, a reflection of your inner weather. And tonight, it's finally starting to sew. Lear. Tonight, you don't reach for a jar, a cloth, or a brush. You walk slowly to the bathhouse at the rear of the compound, past the stone lanterns and moss-covered walls, the air damp with the scent of pine smoke and lavender. It's bath day, something rare and revered in the palace, especially in cooler seasons when water must be heated slowly over hours and herbs prepared long in advance. This isn't a quick cleanse. It's ritual. It's ceremony. You push open the wooden door and step into a room bathed in warm steam. A tub carved from cedar sits half-filled, and beside it, a tray of ingredients awaits. Crushed mugwort, slices of dried orange peel, lotus root powder, and bundles of sweet flag root tied neatly with red thread. You strip off your layers, not hurriedly, but like you're peeling away the noise of the week. One step at a time, one sigh at a time, the water welcomes you. Warm, not hot. Soft with rice starch. Your body sighs as it lowers into the bath. The herbs are added one by one. Mugwort first, famous for its soothing, almost anesthetic effect. Then the citrus, which smells like memories. Then the sweet flag, a root once used to protect the spirit as much as the skin. Historians still argue whether these baths were purely cosmetic or rooted in shamanic purification rites, but for you, it's both. The water softens your limbs, the steam opens your chest, and slowly, the world feels farther away. A maid enters quietly and kneels behind you with a silk pouch filled with bean powder and ginseng flower. She begins to scrub your back in gentle rhythmic motions, small circles, steady pressure. The sound of the cloth against your skin is like waves brushing the shore. She speaks only once. The skin forgets nothing. You nod. Because it's true. The stress, the tension, the joy, it all settles somewhere. Your jaw, your shoulders, the curve behind your ears. You lean forward and allow her to pour a small basin of chrysanthemum tea over your hair, letting it trickle down your scalp like golden rain. The scent clings to your neck. You feel washed, not just clean, but reset. This bath isn't just about softness. It's about energy, about clearing the blocks you can't name. After the soak, you step out slowly. A cotton robe is waiting, still warm from the fire. You pat yourself dry with a towel woven from flax fibers and sprinkle a powder of crushed bamboo and rice blossom across your shoulders. It's faintly sweet, faintly smoky, like something between perfume and prayer. And then, the final part of the ritual. You sit cross-legged on the heated floor and massage camellia oil into your arms, your chest, your legs, your belly. You follow the meridians as instructed by the scrolls passed down through generations, upward on the arms to lift energy, downward on the legs to calm it. You pause over your heart. You stay there a moment longer. Fringe practices echo in your mind, like the women who brushed their skin with peacock feathers to encourage circulation, or who buried rose quartz stones under their bathhouses to soften the mood of the room. You laugh to yourself softly. You'd try it. Why not? The glow you feel now isn't the usual one. It's not polished or powdered. It's raw, deeper, as if your skin has finally exhaled. You lie back, robe loose, hair damp, heart slower. Your skin smells of mugwort and citrus and a whisper of memory. It doesn't shine. It radiates. The bathhouse darkens as the candles flicker low. You hear water dripping from a bamboo spout outside. Everything is still, and your body, your face, your breath, everything says, thank you. You wake in the quietest part of the night, when even the insects have stopped humming and the oil lamp beside your bed burns so low its flame feels shy. You stretch slowly, the silk of your robe rustling softly as you sit up. Tonight marks the end of a long cycle, not just of days or routines, but of transformation. Your skin has changed, but so have you. You rise and move to your beauty table, not out of duty, but with something closer to reverence. You're not chasing glow tonight, you're honoring it. You begin by lighting a single stick of incense made from dried plum blossom and sandalwood. Its smoke curls upward, slow and spiraling, filling the room with a scent that feels like exhale. You open the last drawer, a box reserved only for rituals performed once each season. Inside, a delicate sachet of fermented rice lees wrapped in mulberry cloth, a blend of pressed orchid root, crushed jade, and dried apricot skins ground so fine they feel like dust. You lift it with care. These are not everyday ingredients, they are ceremonial, meant to mark change. You boil a bowl of spring water, add the powder slowly, and watch it bloom into a soft, pale paste. As it cools, you sit back and smooth it onto your face, not for correction or enhancement, but to seal in all that has been. Historians still argue whether this practice, the closing mask, was widespread or reserved for noble women only, but written records describe it as an evening prayer to the skin. It calms, it sets, it tells the body, you are safe now. While the mask sets, you hum softly. A lullaby your grandmother once whispered while brushing your hair. A song that doesn't have words, just a rhythm, slow, falling, like petals in water. You reach for your softest cloth, dyed faintly with persimmon and sage, and wipe the mask away gently. The skin beneath is warm, quiet, almost luminous. You don't rush, you don't layer anything over it. No toner, no mist. Just breath. Because the final glow doesn't come from product. It comes from peace. You walk slowly to your sleeping mat, your robe brushing the floor, your bare feet making no sound. You lie back, not with tension, but surrender. The moon casts soft light through the paper window, catching the edge of your cheek, illuminating the faint shimmer left by apricot and orchid. You feel whole, not because your skin is perfect, but because it has been listened to, cared for, respected. You close your eyes, let everything go. The duties, the steps, the scrutiny. The jars will wait, the court will whisper, the routine will begin again tomorrow. But tonight, you sleep not as a courtier, or a daughter-in-law, or a scholar's wife. You sleep as a woman whose face has been loved, even by her own hands, even in silence. Now let everything soften, let your breath slow, and your shoulders drop. You've walked through a world where beauty was never hurried, where each motion meant something, and every ingredient came with a story. You've traced your fingers over centuries of wisdom, through rice water and pine needles, camellia oil and powdered pearls. You've sat beside palace mirrors and peasant fires, shared secrets with strangers in moonlit tea rooms, and let steam and silence carry away the noise of the day. And as your eyes grow heavier, feel your skin wrapped in calm. No serums, no steps, just stillness. Imagine a quiet garden beyond your window, its blossoms closed for the night, its paths empty, its air cool and sweet. Your face, warmed by sleep, reflects the glow of all those who came before you, women who crushed roots in wooden bowls, stirred dreams into pastes, and painted strength across their skin, one careful pat at a time. You are part of that ritual now, not to be admired, not to impress, but simply to be. Let the quiet take you. Let the glow carry on without effort. Let the night itself press a kiss to your forehead as you drift. You've done enough. You've cared enough. You are enough. Good night.